There are fears that the Eastern Cape will not be represented in the ANC's top six. It's driven by what seems like a lack of support from the president for his nominees. The province's leadership says there's a silent mobilization against the Eastern Cape. They feel the organization's top six will be dominated by cadres from Limpopo. To unpack this, I'm joined by political analyst Bheki Mngomezulu. Professor, good morning and thank you very much for your time. I mean, today being the 7th, we understand that is the deadline for branch nominations. But what seems to remain a talking point is the president's decision not to endorse or campaign for any of his running mates or those that assumed or had raised their hand to run with him, particularly in the Eastern Cape. What is your take on just the decision alone by the president to not endorse or campaign for any other members of the party?
No, thank you very much, Mfundo, for having me, and good morning to your viewers. My assessment of the situation is that the president is treading carefully, understandably so, especially given the cloud that is still hanging over his head over the Phala matter. So I think that he's trying to avoid a situation whereby he comes out clearly stating who his team will be and who his running mate will be, only to find that maybe things don't go well, and then in which case he would have disadvantaged those who would have announced. So I think that he's just playing the wait-and-see game. Closer to the time, obviously, we'll have to announce as to whether he's accepting the nomination in the first place, and then if so, who his running mate will be, and then those things will have to be decided later on. But I think that the reason why people are so anxious is because they are vying for these positions for one reason or the other, and therefore they want to know sooner than later as to whether they stand a chance or not. In all likelihood, some in fact might end up joining the queue that is moving than just waiting for something that we are not sure of. But I think the president's action, for me, is understandable given the current situation I've just outlined.
But it's also interesting how some of those who've been talking about renewal still wanted endorsements from the president, because that could be considered a subtle continuation of slate politics, which they said they wanted to rid themselves of, where politicians skip the process of clearly articulating their vision for the ANC to branches, but in this instance they prefer to just ride on the coattails of the most senior leader. What does it say to you about the renewal program? Do they really want to renew, or there's also a desire to keep some of the things of old and bring them to this renewed ANC?
No, Mfundo, never trust politicians, because they will tell you today they are not going to vote, or they will rather vote for a ghost. And then tomorrow you find that they are in your corner. So, in other words, but I'm just being simplistic about this and then putting it jokingly. But that is actually the reality of what is happening. Politicians will say one thing today and then tomorrow they sing a different tune altogether. This idea of the renewal agenda of the ANC, in principle, it's a good move. And it's something to be commendable. But are they doing what they said they will be doing? I'm not too sure. If you look at this thought that, or this narrative that they are rebuilding the party and they are making sure that they do away with the wrongs of the past, then you ask yourself a very simple question. Is the ANC better off now than it was yesterday? The answer is definitely no for me, because there are a number of things that have gone wrong, and then the rift in these factions is not getting narrower. Instead, it's getting wider and wider. So then the question becomes, those who are saying that they are pushing the renewal agenda, are they being serious about it, or are just playing political rhetoric? For me, the latter is the case. And in fact, what we've just said confirms my assertions that they say one thing and then they do the other. If indeed they are concerned about renewing the organization, given the results of the 2019 general election and the 2021 local government election, and then gearing up for the 2024 general election, one would have expected that something concrete would have been happening right now, but we see very little of that, if anything at all. So if I want to be endorsed by you, and then there are questions about you, that says a lot, not about you, but about me as a person, and therefore it goes back to the point we're making, that they say one thing on the one hand, and then they do something else on the other.
But why is there no appetite from some within the party to clearly articulate their vision for the African National Congress to their own branch members? Why is it always the desire to be associated with a particular leader and then have branches just vote for you by virtue of you just being associated with a leader? Why is there no desire to tell the branches what or where you want to take the ANC?
You see, my sister, the problem here is that the ANC has moved away from what we knew it to be. Some of us have been studying the ANC for quite a long time, and a number of other political parties. I'm on record, for example, saying that of all the political parties that left the ANC, I still respect the PAC on one reason, that they left the ANC on a clear policy issue. But right now, if you look at all the over 500 political parties, and then you ask yourself, what is the difference amongst them? There is very little, if anything. So the only thing that happened was in 1959 when the PAC was formed. So coming back to your question, the reason why politicians are reluctant to do what the ANC is known for, which is going to the branches, marketing yourself, presenting your strategy, indicating what you are going to do for the organization. The reason why you are not having that happening is because people are now using these factions as opposed to putting concrete things on the table. Ordinarily, if I want to be elected, I shouldn't be relying on you to get a position. I should be relying on the branches because they are the ones who are supposed to be having a louder voice. But even branches themselves have been weakened by the fact that some of the contenders for these positions go to the branches and literally buy votes. And then that, of course, means that a wrong person emerges victorious, and then the party suffers at the end. The person will still succeed, of course, and the person will win, but then the party is going to suffer. So that is the reality we're faced with.
In the vote buying, though, now, they've tried to perhaps contain that situation by having them declare. Do you think it will lead to some sort of a fairer outcome where whatever outcome we see in Nasrec will be a true reflection of the branch's wishes this time around, since everybody's going to declare their campaign managers and how much money was put into their campaign?
Depending on whether people are going to be honest or not. You have heard many times about the so-called lifestyle audit. To what extent have we done that? You and I can just debate this from sunrise to sunset. So basically the point I'm making is we come up with a very long list of good guidelines and then, of course, policy positions. But when it comes to implementation, we don't seem to be doing very well. So which means, therefore, that this issue of us as politicians, if I were to call it that way, say I assume myself to be a politician, and then I go to the branches, I indicate who my running mate will be, who my manager is, and who else I'm working with, and here are our assets, these are our financial records and all of that. But the problem will be those who are supposed to monitor the situation. Chances are the person will come with good intentions to monitor our activities, and then we call that person to the corner, and then we give that person a brown envelope, and then when the report comes, everything is in the clear. When people on the ground know exactly what has happened, but then the picture that will be painted by the formal report will say everything went smoothly, when in fact everything went wrong. So that's why I'm saying that as much as these guidelines are clear, what it amounts to is honesty, honesty by everyone involved in the process.
And then to the candidates, who would you place at top two best based on their campaigns so far?
No one, my sister. I'll be honest with you, no one. We've heard that the sitting president has been nominated by his branch in Soweto and then other provinces as well. But is he the best candidate? I don't think so. And then you look at Dr. Zweli Mkhize. Dr. Zweli Mkhize has, of course, tried his level best to amass support. But is this support he gets, for example, from KwaZulu-Natal, translated to other provinces? At the moment, it doesn't look like it. And then you look at Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma. Of course, in 2017, she did a sterling job. And she gave President Ramaphosa a good run for his money to the extent that Ramaphosa only won by 179 votes. But at the moment, as things stand, does she command support? I'm not too sure that is the case, because the mere fact that you have Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma and then you have Dr. Zweli Mkhize coming from the same province, for me, that is a recipe for disaster. Because all they
But it happened in 2017. It happened in 2017. He proposed the third way, as we remember. So it could still mean one of them emerges. It's neither here nor there for them coming from the same province. Wouldn't they just be exercising their right?
Exactly my point, that they should have learned from what happened in 2017. Because if you go to an election divided and then you have a sitting president, the incumbency has some advantages because people are going to give the incumbent president the benefit of the doubt. Then if you go there disjointed, what is going to happen is what would have been a formidable force facing the sitting president will then result in the votes being split between the two. Unless, of course, at the 11th hour, one of them pulls out, like it happened in 2017, where Dr. Zweli Mkhize pulled out. But then the way things are at the moment, there is no clear-cut candidate. The only reason the sitting president might survive is because there are no strong contenders at the moment, not because he's the best candidate.
So meaning you are of the view that perhaps this could be expanded to the RET candidates, not just the two, being Zweli Mkhize and Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, coming from the same province. I suppose the same could apply then to the RET candidates, as they say they are, being Lindiwe Sisulu, Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma and Dr. Zweli Mkhize, meaning the three could possibly have some sort of negotiation and have one candidate come out of them so that they don't split the vote there.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, in 2002 in Kenya, the reason why Mwai Kibaki emerged victorious, I happened to be there and I attended a number of rallies, both from the NAC and then also from Kano. The reason why Mwai Kibaki emerged victorious is because those who were in his corner were strategic. They said ethnicity is a problem, and then, of course, Uhuru Kenyatta is a Kikuyu, and then we must get a Kikuyu to face a Kikuyu. That is how they agreed that Mwai Kibaki should be a candidate. Not because Mwai Kibaki was the best candidate amongst all the 14 political parties that came together, but they were strategic. So in this case, if the RET faction were to come together and say, we are facing the president, and then he's the incumbent president, let us strategize, let's find someone who's most likely to give the president a good run for his money, and let us rally support behind that individual, then they would stand a better chance. But as things stand at the moment, I doubt if they will survive.
And then on the NEC, just in closing, how have they fared? Because I read one article where they quoted Nomvula Mkonyane saying that the current NEC has been the weakest in the party's 110 years of existence.
No, that is true. And that is why you have the structures of the ANC being dysfunctional or being non-existent. You talk of the MKMVA, it's not there. You talk of the Women's League, it's an interim structure. You talk of the Youth League, it's an interim structure. The question is, where is the NEC to give direction? Because according to the constitution of the ANC, the NEC is the structure that is responsible to take care of everything in the organization between elections. Have they done that? I don't think they've done so, because if that was the case, we wouldn't be where we are right now, where the structures of the organization are non-functional, are dysfunctional, or non-existent entirely. So I don't think that we can falter Mokonyane for the statements that she made. In fact, she was on point.
Professor, thank you very much for your insights this morning. That's Professor Bheki Mngomezulu. To the story.